In the stillness of a spring morning in the year 1623, a sharp scream echoed through the marble halls of Topkapi Palace. It was not the cry of a soldier hurt in battle, nor the plea of a captured foe. It was the voice of a 15-year-old girl, Princess Fatma Sultan, the daughter of the most powerful monarch on earth. Her cries cut through the corridors like blades of ice. Even the eunuchs who kept watch at the palace gates stepped back in fear, too terrified to act in a moment forbidden to all. What happened that night was not a simple family misfortune. It was the unveiling of the hidden price that every daughter of the Ottoman throne had to pay. A price marked into both body and soul, a truth that history tried to silence for 600 years. Fatma's screams were not from wounds of the flesh. They were the cries of ritual, of an old practice that broke the spirit long before it touched the body. It condemned the princesses of the dynasty to lives of shadow before they had even reached womanhood. For more than 6 centuries, the empire guarded a preparation for marriage so cruel, so carefully shaped, that even the fiercest enemies of the sultans would not wish it on their own daughters. This tradition was erased from the official chronicles, hidden behind golden doors and rich hangings. It surfaced again only in 2019, when secret records were uncovered in Istanbul's archives. Across the world, millions of women, peasants, noble ladies, even queens, dreamed of the destiny of an Ottoman princess, dressed in silks, covered with jewels, and attended by many servants. Yet behind those glowing walls there was not happiness, but torment. It was torment so heavy that many young girls prayed for death rather than face their wedding night. And now, in this telling, you will witness the truth that was hidden away for centuries. What follows is not a fairy tale, but a story of horror covered in imperial ritual. If these words already made your heart tremble, show your interest. Subscribe, and in the comments tell us which queen or princess you want to hear next. Marie Antoinette, Cleopatra, or Anne Boleyn. Your choice will guide the next secret history. Now come with me. Let us discover why so many Ottoman princesses, born in palaces of gold, longed instead for the cold embrace of the grave. The Ottoman Empire, vast as a boundless sea, lasted more than 6 centuries, from 1299 to 1922. Its armies thundered across 3 continents, their power felt from the walls of Vienna to the deserts of Yemen. After the conquest of Constantinople in 1453, the city became the living heart of Ottoman rule. Renamed Istanbul, it held Topkapi Palace, the greatest jewel of power. Within its walls, golden rooms and perfumed courtyards shaped the fates of kingdoms and of souls. Hidden inside was the imperial harem, a world of its own. At its height, more than 800 women lived within its limits. It was a universe wrapped in silk and silence, where every glance and gesture could mean rise or ruin. In 1530, when Suleiman the Magnificent gave his consort Harem the title of Hasiki Sultan, the harem stopped being only a place of pleasure. It became an arena of plots, alliances, and quiet struggles among women. Most concubines were Christian captives, taken in raids or bought in markets across Europe and North Africa. They entered the harem with fragile hopes, dreaming of turning chains into crowns. Their days passed with music, embroidery, poetry, and rituals of obedience. They wished to win the Sultan's eye, to rise from slavery into influence. And in cruel irony, these enslaved girls, carried far from their homes and sold as goods, often knew more freedom than the Sultan's own daughters. Between 1533 and 1656, during the period known to historians as the Sultanate of Women, female authority in the Ottoman court reached its height. Figures like Kozum Sultan and Turhan Hadisi Sultan ruled from behind the veil, steering councils, determining wars, and shaping the empire's destiny with decisive will. Yet while concubines ascended as hidden sovereigns, the true-born princesses, daughters of royal blood, found themselves trapped in an even darker labyrinth. They became pawns in the political chessboard of the empire, living tokens used to seal alliances, calm uprisings, or ensure the loyalty of powerful pashas. In this world, Princess Fatma Sultan was born in 1606, the daughter of Sultan Ahmed I and the formidable Kozum Sultan, the woman who would later rule the empire from the shadows. Fatima's early years were wrapped in privilege and knowledge. She strolled through fragrant gardens, studied astronomy, and read Arabic and Persian texts. Scholars praised her sharp mind, and chroniclers admired her beauty. She was regarded as a prodigy, fluent in 4 languages, skilled in elegant calligraphy, and filled with a hunger to unravel the secrets of the heavens. She debated masters of history, law, and geography. Her brilliance illuminated the palace, yet it meant nothing. Her destiny had been sealed before her first cry. From the moment she entered the world, her life was not her own. Her fate was to be married away as a pledge of loyalty, regardless of her will. The man chosen for her was Damat Kara Mustafa Pasha, a seasoned commander 20 years older, whose loyalty to the dynasty was proven in wars against Persia. For him, the marriage was a step toward power. For her, it marked the beginning of sorrow. 3 months before her wedding, Fatima was subjected to the dreaded training known as Turval and Mubarak, the so-called sacred education. This practice was reserved for princesses alone. It was the perfected result of centuries of psychological discipline, intended to break royal pride and mold them into silent instruments of obedience. Her overseer was Gulnar Hatun, a woman of 60 winters, mistress of the harem, and veteran of more than a dozen princess trainings. Under her strict supervision, Fatima was led into the Angelino Dais, the bridal chamber. The room, decorated with Persian rugs and ebony panels, was not a sanctuary but a prison. Every detail whispered submission and duty. From morning until midday she was forced into endless acts of reverence. She learned 18 distinct bows and postures. For greeting, for serving, for reclining, for waiting quietly for her husband's arrival. Even her steps no longer belonged to her. She was drilled in Urish and Sesh. Precise movements with her head inclined 30 degrees, her hands kept below her heart. Every motion stripped her of dignity, turning her into a silent shadow. The harshest torment, however, was her speech. Her vocabulary was reduced to 43 approved words, phrases of gratitude, acceptance, humble requests, and apologies. Any deviation, any sign of independent thought, was punished by fasting, isolation, or public shame before the harem. Her submission was tested by a council of women and eunuchs, presided over by none other than her own mother, Kozum. Even she judged her daughter not as a child, but as a coin in the empire's marketplace of power. And still, the most disturbing part of the ritual lay ahead. Beneath the palace, in underground halls, stood replicas of bridal chambers. There, Fatima endured Talim and Gerdek, the rehearsals of the wedding night. She was forced to interact with wax figures, anatomical models crafted by Venetian artisans. Instructors, cold and stern, ordered her to perform gestures and acts no girl should know. Every tear, every moment of resistance, every tremor of fear was carefully recorded. The more she resisted, the harsher the conditioning became. Slowly, the girl who once dreamed of the stars was silenced. Her brilliance dimmed, her body was trained to obey, and her spirit bent into submission. Princess Fatima was no longer a daughter of emperors. She had become an apprentice to her destiny. A week before the wedding, the discipline grew even harsher. Fatma Sultan was taken to the Gelin Kashku, the bride's pavilion, an isolated chamber into which no sound from the outside world could enter. Here, every part of her life was controlled. What she ate was prescribed: pomegranates, almonds, honey, goat's milk, and rare spices from Yemen. Even her bathing was regulated. Each day, attendants carried out purification baths using oils scented with valerian, poppy, and orange blossom. These potions, prepared by alchemists trained in Cordoba and Samarkand, contained hidden ingredients. Some calmed her body, others dulled her will, and a few left her drifting, as if she were leaving herself behind. The pavilion's walls were covered with tapestries embroidered with scenes of perfect wives. Obedient, fertile, submissive, promised eternal reward for loyalty. Venetian mirrors were placed so that Fatima was forced to see herself constantly. This practice, once a Sufi exercise known as muraqaba, was transformed here into a weapon of the mind. She was made to observe herself, to police even her most private thoughts. In this prison of silk and mirrors, Fatima came to understand the truth. She no longer belonged to herself. Her body, her words, even her mind, had been remade into a tool of obedience. The training had done its work, not only breaking her, but erasing the girl who once dreamed of the stars. The chosen day came, March 15, 1623. From sunrise, Istanbul pulsed like an overflowing heart. Processions, incense, and music filled the streets. Within Topkapi Palace, golden plates held feasts. Dancers from Persia and Andalusia performed, and musicians praised the empire's greatness. Janissaries displayed their strength before the Sultan. For the people, it was paradise. For Fatima, it was the prelude to a sentence. Chroniclers recorded that while guests laughed and celebrated, Fatima sat silently, her lips dry, her eyes hollow. Palace physicians noted symptoms we would now call panic attacks. Trembling, cold sweats despite the March air, loss of appetite, and shallow breathing so severe they feared for her life. The outer spectacle gleamed with splendor, but inside her, fear spread like a growing shadow. When the last cup was raised and the crowd dismissed, the most dreaded procession began. Fatima was led to the nuptial pavilion, a special structure in the private gardens designed from plans dating back to Mehmed the Conqueror. Octagonal in shape, it rose in 3 levels, each one devoted to purification, submission, and consummation. The design was deliberate. Every hallway, every room was intended to strip away her defenses and turn the marriage right into total surrender. The first level, Taj Hakatu, was for purification. Fatima was subjected to long ritual baths in marble tubs filled with rosewater, sandalwood, and ambergris from Somalia. Alchemists brought ointments mixed with diluted opium, mandrake root, and secret compounds meant to bring calm, compliance, even false joy. Doctors described her condition as one of missionary trance, the body yielding while the soul cried in silence. The second level, Teslim Katu, was the chamber of submission. Fatima was dressed in her bridal gown, white silk embroidered with gold, with pearls from the Persian Gulf stitched into the fabric. At first sight, it was a garment of majesty, but in truth it was a cage. Hidden cords and fastenings allowed her to be bound. The crown weighed heavily, forcing her neck. Anklets and bracelets restricted her, and shoes with thick soles slowed her steps. The gown was not freedom, but a prison sewn in luxury. While Fatima was molded into a living emblem of obedience, her future husband, Kara Mustafa Pasha, prepared in a very different manner. Surrounded by advisors and veteran warriors, he was trained in how to dominate a princess of imperial blood. He learned methods of intimidation, words crafted to humiliate, and strategies of physical control. Every detail was arranged so that there would be no room for hesitation, no chance for resistance. At last, Fatima was brought to the third level, Sifaf Katu, the chamber of consummation. Its walls were draped with scenes of conquest. Triumphant armies, fallen cities, captive princesses. This was intentional. The imagery tied battlefield victories directly to victory in the marriage bed. Even the furniture was designed for control. Beds equipped with hidden cords, cushions infused with sedatives, lighting arranged to weaken resistance. And it was here, in this chamber saturated with symbols of power, that Fatima endured her most dreaded night. When the doors of the Sifaf Katu closed, she was left alone with her husband. Medical notes from the time describe what followed as a collapse of the spirit. The girl who had survived months of drills and humiliation could no longer respond. Her body shook without end. Her voice shrank to a whisper, and her gaze drifted into emptiness. The court physicians named this state Sakma item the complete shock. Kara Mustafa Pasha, a man hardened by war, mistook it for arrogance, believing it was defiance that needed to be broken. He used the lessons given to him, words of menace, gestures of power, calculated touches. But what he met was not rebellion, it was absence. There was no fight left in her, only withdrawal. Fatima's mind had retreated, as if her soul had left her body to survive. When the consummation finally occurred, after hours of failed attempts, It was recorded by hidden witnesses as devastating for both. Persian-coded reports speak of bleeding, repeated fainting, and what doctors called rusukmek, the departure of the soul. From that night forward, Fatima was never the same. In the days after, her behavior unsettled even the harshest guardians of the harem. She developed selective mutism, answering only in whispers when addressed. She refused food until attendants were forced to feed her by hand. She wept for hours without cause. Worse still, she suffered what chroniclers named the sickness of fear. The mere sight of a man, even trusted eunuchs, drove her into panic with gasping breaths, sweating, and fainting. Palace physicians diagnosed it as virginal melancholy, a condition they believed common among princesses after their wedding nights. Today we would call it unhealable trauma, a wound to the soul. Treatments were attempted. Herbs, music, Sufi rites, but none revived her. The brilliant child who debated scholars, the young woman who loved poetry and astronomy, was gone. In her place remained only a silent shadow, obedient but lifeless. Her books gathered dust, her instruments lay untouched, and the gardens she once wandered grew still. Her union with Kara Mustafa became mechanical. There were children, ceremonies, and appearances of normality. Yet behind closed doors there was only emptiness. Memoirs suggest Mustafa himself sought refuge in campaigns and in opium, trying to escape the guilt of being the tool of a ritual that destroyed her. Fatima survived 29 more years in this hollow state. She lived as a figure of ceremony, a mother by duty, a wife without a voice. In 1652, she died at the age of 46. Official documents declared brain fever, but the date was the anniversary of her wedding. Few in the court believed it coincidence. On that day, the weight of memory finally crushed her. The tragedy of Fatma Sultan was not a single story. It was a reflection of a cycle endured by generations of Ottoman princesses. Palace records uncovered centuries later revealed that many daughters of the dynasty shared the same fate. Some were left in silence by mutism, others sought escape through madness or through death, and a few disappeared from the chronicles altogether, as if they had never lived. The machinery of empire, precise in its ceremonies, knew how to erase unwanted traces. What could not be erased was softened into euphemism, hidden under ornate words in official documents, or disguised as ceremony. Yet the truth survived in secret notes, coded papers, and hushed testimonies that endured in the shadows until modern times. Some princesses, despite their conditioning, tried to resist. Recently translated records speak of royal daughters who staged their own deaths to avoid remarriage. Others invented secret codes to speak with sisters silenced by the same rituals. And a few, with astonishing courage, petitioned the Sultan directly for divorce, daring to confront a system thought impossible to break. These stories, buried for centuries in forbidden archives, remind us that even in the deepest darkness, sparks of defiance endured. Women raised to yield still found ways to whisper no into the silence. Fatma's tragedy exposes a bitter truth. Absolute power does not always shield those who embody it. Instead, it devours them. While the world imagined Ottoman princesses surrounded by gold and splendor, their reality was one of unseen chains. A system of rituals so perfected that it sacrificed lives to preserve alliances and the balance of politics. The harem, in popular memory, became a place of silks, perfumes, and intrigue. But in truth, it was also a stage of silenced cries and hidden grief. The tales told as stories of princesses were, in reality, tools of politics, narratives that consumed the Sultan's own daughters. And so the inevitable question arises: how many other secrets remain locked within the archives of palaces? What rituals were buried in the courts of Europe, of Russia, of China? What terrible costs did women pay to uphold dynasties? Fatma Sultan's story is not only a page of Ottoman history. It is a warning of how easily power transforms its children into sacrifices, how crowns gleam while resting on human suffering. For centuries, official chroniclers hid these truths. Serving the throne, they described the harem as refined, full of jewels, music, and poetry, while leaving out fear, despair, and broken spirits. Yet beneath those polished accounts, in neglected manuscripts and medical notes, another story lived. It was the story of women silenced, lives rewritten, tragedies masked as rituals. The scream that echoed through Topkapi Palace in 1623 was not the only one. It was simply the one that left enough of a mark to be remembered. To hear Fatma's story is to remove the mask of history. It reveals that behind every glittering palace stood lives consumed by ritual and silence. It reminds us that power, no matter how radiant, is never as golden as it appears. And it forces us to ask, how many voices still lie buried beneath ceremony, waiting for someone to listen? If Fatma Sultan's story has shaken you, if it has made your heart tremble, then join us as we uncover the truths hidden behind royal walls. Subscribe, share this tale with those who must hear it, and tell us in the comments whose fate you wish revealed next. Shall it be a Russian Tsarina, feared by her own mother? An empress of China, bound to sinister rituals of power? Or a European princess, bartered to secure a fragile alliance? Your choice will guide the next revelation. Because only by facing these hidden truths can we strip away history's disguise and finally hear the silenced voices of those sacrificed in the name of power.